Good morning, everybody. Welcome this morning. I'm happy to see everyone. I'm Susie Lopez. I'm the Hillsborough County State Attorney. I'd like to call the meeting of the Public Safety Coordinating Council to order. I'm very happy to see so many faces this morning. This is, I think, as close to a full council as we've had in quite a while. If Ms. Nappy is present, we'd like to get the roll call taken, please.
Yes, good morning. Ms. Lopez?
Present.
Chief Judge Sabella?
Present.
Ms. Lisa McLean?
Deion Jones for Lisa McLean.
Judge Jeffrey Rich?
Present.
Sheriff Chad Cronister?
Colonel Robert Ure for Sheriff Cronister and myself.
Mr. Nick Bates?
Here.
Mr. Mark Proctor?
Here.
Clerk Victor Christ?
Present.
Mr. Robert Parkinson?
Here.
Chief Lee Burkaw?
Here.
Commissioner Cameron Cepeda?
Present.
Miss Dion Obergon?
Present.
Miss Yvette Lewis,
Present.
Miss Gwen Henderson, Miss Amy Ruiz. I'm sorry, just press the button. Yes, thank you.
Louis Silva for Amy Ruiz.
Mr. Van Ayers. Zamir Odie is here for Van Ayers. Miss Kelly Hammersley,
Here.
Mr. Patrick Barentine,
Present.
Chief Chris Daniels, Miss Cindy Grant,
Present.
and Representative Karen Gonzalez Pittman.
Present.
Chair, we have quorum.
Thank you very much. Before we begin, I'd like to welcome Representative Gonzalez Pittman. She is here as our legislative representative. She has agreed to serve on the council in replace of Senator Gerald Rousson. So good morning, Representative, and thank you very much for being here. The January 17th, 2025 minutes are included in your packet. But before we do that, thank you, Mr. Bates. Would everyone please join me in standing to say the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, got a little ahead of myself. The January 17th, 2025 minutes are included in your packets. Is there a motion to approve these minutes? Motion. Thank you, Mr. Bates. Is there a second?
Second.
I don't know who said that, Mr. Obergron. I believe that was you. Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to old business. I've included in your packet a copy of the bylaws. And the reason that I have requested that we have those is just to give a gentle reminder for any absences. We would like to have as full a council as we possibly can at each meeting. So if you are unable to be present, the bylaws give you a path for sending a designee, someone with the ability to vote, but we also want to try and make it so that everyone is here at every meeting. We do meet very infrequently. Just in case that there is a decision that is made, we want to make sure that everyone who sits on the original council knows. And so I asked Ms. Nappy and Mr. Parkinson to include the bylaws for that purpose. So please just check them out when you're able to. And if you are unable to be present, if you could just shoot an email over to me, Mr. Parkinson, and Ms. Nappy, that would really help for us to figure out who in fact is going to be here. Before we move on to new business, does anybody have any other old business to address? Seeing none. Under new business, we have someone here from Speak Up. Let's talk about mental health presentation, Dawn Handley. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here. Thank you. I'm just going to pass this packet around. If everybody wants to take one, you'll understand what I'm here to talk about. So, my name is Dawn Handley. I am the president of a local nonprofit called Speak Up, Let's Talk About Mental Health. We are in the Tri-County area, Pinellas, Pasco, and Hillsborough. So we founded Speak Up to honor my son. My oldest son, Scott, was diagnosed with schizophrenia at the age of 23. He struggled with schizophrenia for 10 years and died by suicide at the age of 33 in February of 2020. So, so we work, our primary goal is to work with youth, neighborhood community centers, high school students, I talk to them about suicide awareness, and law enforcement. So I'm very active, involved in CIT training from the peer panel perspective in all 3 counties. And Scott had 2 interactions with police officers. One was CIT, Trained Officer Crisis Intervention Team. I'm sure everybody knows what that is, but just in case. And that was a good Baker Act as far as you can be concerned. The officer knew how to interact with Scott, took the time to talk to him, calmed him down, let him get dressed, let him know that he was going to be taken to a place safe. And that all went well. Scott was in that facility for a week, was released. and back on track on his meds. Another interaction was with 2 non-CIT trained officers. That did not go well. I felt like they should have known that he was in a mental health crisis based on the 5 calls that he made to 911. But I also understand that 911 dispatchers are not trained at all times in the CIT training. So, like I said, that did not end well. He was basically to the ground, handcuffed, no communication, and taken to a facility. So as time went on, and after Scott died, I realized that that was a very, very important part, how important CIT training was, and how I wanted to get involved with it, and how I wanted to share my side of the story from a family perspective as well as from Scott's. I don't think those officers were bad officers whatsoever. I think that they did not have the opportunity to be educated in how to interact with somebody in a mental health crisis. So as time went on and I became more and more involved in the training part of it, many officers would come up to me and say, if we only knew what we were walking into, that might help. It might, help us how we're going to interact with this person. And I thought, yeah, maybe those 2 officers that weren't trained, if they had seen some sort of sign, maybe they would have stepped back a minute and kind of thought about how they were interacting instead of just barging right in. So we came up with a decal. Now, I know that there are special needs decals. I know there is that program. However, there is not a decal for mental health. There is one for autism and special needs. But when you interact with somebody who is in a crisis, it's a little bit different than somebody who has autism. So we actually came up with this design that's in the packet. The thing with having a mental health sticker is you can't really put mental health, mental illness on the sticker because of the stigma that's attached to it. Nobody's going to want to put that on their window. So you can't even do the ribbon or anything. So we talked to several family members. We talked to people with a mental illness that had had interaction with law enforcement. We asked them what they thought of the design. It's basically a honeycomb for community. It's the dopamine molecule in it, and then just small words of speak up. We have done this decal initiative in Pasco County now for over a year. It has proven to be very effective with the interaction with police officers and somebody in a mental health crisis. It is only distributed through law enforcement, through the CIT trainings, or just through law enforcement, period, or discharge planners at behavioral health facilities. We don't want it just to be out there. It is for a purpose. It's for a very specific purpose. So we have distributed it about 400, a little over 400 in Pasco County. We work with some of the agencies in Pinellas County, and we are hoping to make this a tri-county known symbol, because I truly believe that if law enforcement, first responders saw a symbol that was on their window or on the front door when they walked up, that maybe they would be able to just take a second and think how they're going to interact with that person. And of course, safety above all else is the most important thing. We want our officers to be safe. We want them to go home to their families. As a family member, we hope that our family members are safe, and we would like them to be treated with as much respect and compassion as it can be possible. And this sign, we hope, could serve as part of the special decal program. And we have law enforcement. We've talked to law enforcement. We've talked to social services. We've talked to mental health therapists. And they're all like, wow, that's a great idea. A lot of people have bracelets. That doesn't do any good until you're inside the residence and see. So we need something that's on the outside. It is registered as a mark with the state of Florida. Speak Up fully funds this project. The stickers are given out during a call. They're given in that envelope so that the family members will know how to use it. We also talked to people, like I said, that had a mental health crisis that have had interaction with law enforcement. And they were all for this. The majority of them were like, yeah, because it didn't go well because I was in a crisis. I did not really know what I was saying or doing. And anything that would help somebody interact with me better at that time, I'm all for it. And it's simple, it's plain. Nobody in the neighborhood may know what it is. That helps reduce the stigma and keep the privacy. And I know with the special needs decal, people have to register for it. Sometimes, if you have a mental health condition, you're not going to want to register for anything because some of those symptoms could be paranoia. You think that everybody's getting your information. I saw that with 10 years with Scott struggling with schizophrenia. However, this is what we're hoping will make a difference. We are hoping that it will provide better interaction, which better interaction will hopefully always provide a better outcome when they go to the facilities. They're a little more cooperative. So that is quick in a nutshell, because I only had a couple minutes, so trying to get it all in there. But like I said, Pasco was all on board. I presented it to Captain Roach, who I work with on CIT. She took it to the sheriff, and they were like, absolutely. And it has proven to be effective up there. And our goal is to possibly do even a smaller one for vehicles. And then even some have asked for a backpack one for the unhoused so that people will know. So does anybody have any questions?
Yes, sir, Mr. Parkinson.
Just a couple comments. I had the privilege of being here in the late 90s when Hillsborough County adopted CIT and the CIT model using the Memphis model. We worked with the University of South Florida to disseminate the training. Our sheriff's office was a very early adopter, and all the models evolved in the intervening years. I'm very proud to say most of our organizations are very involved in CIT. You mentioned the Tampa Police Department Special Needs Registry, which has been going for a couple of years now, fairly robust. It also has a window sticker component. Our sheriff's office actually developed a similar model called Operation Safe Encounter, which uses an online registration with a technology solution. And then when officers and deputies are dispatched, it comes up in their computer-aided dispatch system. What I specifically like about yours is it's somewhat stigma reducing, because if you don't know, you don't know, because it's got the sticker of the dopamine molecule. And I see behind you is Miss Marie Marino with the Public Defender's Office, who's always a big advocate of reducing behavioral health stigma in the community. So I think this is a great concept. I'm just, I'm wondering how this might dovetail with some of the other projects that are going on here in Hillsborough.
Chief?
I like the program. I was just curious if you could put links to our programs inside your website, just because certain calming words or techniques might assist the officer as they're being dispatched. So if we have that information ahead of time, the only way we would get that is by them also linking with us and providing that information.
Right. No, excellent idea, and that's easy to do. And being actively involved in the CIT training, I am so impressed with it, and I think that's why I'm so passionate about it. There's nothing like, just yesterday I was at the detention center with a bunch of new people that are going to be working at the detention center, 19 years and up, so they were very young. And they're all so respectful. They're also willing to learn, and that truly makes a difference. And I know firsthand that makes a difference, and I do wonder sometimes if there had been a sign, maybe the officers would have stepped back a minute, because that's the difference sometimes between a good outcome and not such a good outcome. And again, it's no reflection upon law enforcement. Anyways, we are not educated. If we don't know, we don't know. And the stigma is so much with mental health illness, and our goal is to try and remove that stigma. And the more we talk about it, the more we can do to help everybody, the better off we are. So I would be happy to do whatever you feel is needed to make this a success. Like I said, it's something that you're just going to put up. It's not, you don't have to register through a database. It will be there. All first responders will know what it means. And I think that was what was surprising to me, is that when Scott, the second call is that he wasn't in the system as having been a mental health crisis call before. And so maybe this will help. But anything else?
Mr. Parkinson? Oh, I'm sorry.
Ma'am, can you please turn on your mic? How are the
Decals disseminated.
Okay, so we do them at all CIT trainings in Pasco County, and we also give them to the sheriff's office at Pasco County. So when they do the readouts, they do a readout. I don't know if it's on a monthly basis or whenever the new wave of officers come through, so they are explained what that sticker means if they run into it. They are distributed through discharge planners at behavioral health facilities. We don't just hand them out at the events that we go to, and this would be a similar rollout. We would roll it out to the main contact people through the Hillsborough County Law Enforcement. Tampa PD, I know, is interested in it. So it would be a rollout, and the key is we want to make sure that everybody knows what that means, that's in law enforcement. Because we've had some organizations such as NAMI has heard about this, and they're like, oh, you know, this is a great idea, we want to do it, but I'm not going to distribute them until law enforcement knows what they mean, because otherwise there's no purpose, and people are expecting them to know what they mean, and it's not there yet, so.
And just for the members of the public, programs like CIT and this program have been proven effective at improving public and officer safety, reducing unnecessary arrests, decreasing use of force incidents, reducing battery on law enforcement officer charges in Florida related to Chapter 916 cases, and improve public perception of law enforcement.
So,
Have you tried to reach out or partner up with any of the mental health courts in any of the areas that you're already in?
mental health coordinators or phys-
Courts.
Courts.
We have the specialty courts.
Yes, sorry, I thought you said coordinators. Not yet, but working there. I'm trying to slowly roll it out in the most effective manner. And like I said, I need to make sure that law enforcement and first responders are aware of what that sticker means before we distribute them to too many different avenues. Because I don't want the person that put that on their window to feel that that is a sign that somebody is going to know that they're in a crisis, but yet everybody's not educated on what that sign means. So that could have a very backwards effect. But that's another avenue.
While you're here, I'd like to introduce you to Ms. Gina Justice, who's sitting in the back. She is our court administrator. So when you broach that issue and you're
Okay.
ready to talk, she's the lady to talk to.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else have any other questions for Ms. Hanley? Oh, Clerk Christ, yes, sir.
First, I'd like to say thank you for what you're doing. I too believe that it's necessary and very important in the process. But I can't help but sit here with my other hat of former responsibilities on. I've worked in the advertising and communications industry for over 40 years and somewhat familiar with imagery and especially in awareness symbols. I have a concern with the image you have here. While it's lovely and it's very well thought out, it doesn't fit the format of what is traditionally recognized throughout the country as an identifiable symbol. Generally, they try to be block in nature and much more simpler in scope, and this doesn't quite fit that format. And I think that that's a concern moving forward because you put all the effort into getting it out there, and it doesn't fit the format of what identifiable symbols are. Has there been any focus groups in deciding the direction that you went with this?
No, we reached out to law enforcement during the CIT training. We had a couple different designs. We asked them their opinion on it. We also asked people, like I said, Vincent House. We asked people who have had interaction. They wanted something that was a little bit, I guess, more decorative, so to speak, and not recognizable as, oh, this is a special needs, or, oh, I have a mental health condition. So that's why we went with that route, so that, because the stigma with mental health is so high. People don't want their neighbors to know they have it. You know, if you put something on the door that says, you know, I don't know, mental health or square or green or a certain ribbon sign, then everybody's going to know what that is. And people are less apt to put that on. So our hope was this seemed to get a good response from everybody. And it's just a matter of educating the people that are going to be involved, that if that sticker's there, that's what it is. So I appreciate your feedback, though, that I guess we were going a different route to, as far as the stigma and the mental health.
Well, I ask that you try to keep an open mind to simplifying this image to an identifiable trademark that provides you with the direction and the purpose that you want, but fits the block art theory of most of these kind of awareness insignias.
Okay.
It can be done in a way where it doesn't give away, what it's signifying to those who don't need to know. But this is a little more engaging than what is customarily used for what the purpose is you're trying to use it for.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the feedback, and maybe we'll redesign. Whatever, we can do, I'm passionate about trying to make sure there's better outcomes, and I did not realize how many people were affected by mental health illness, along with the suicide numbers, until it happened to me. And, I never thought it would happen to me. So, and whatever we can do to make that better is what our goal is. So,
Thank you very much for being
Thank
here. And thank
you.
you for everything that you're doing to honor your son.
thank you. Thank you for your time. And if
Thank
there's
you.
anything further I can do, let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Kevin Wagner with the C13 Problem Solving Court Funding Update. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Chair. Excuse me, and Council. Again, Kevin Wagner, Healthcare Services Department, Hillsborough County. I have the next two agenda items, and this is an easy one because they're both positive good news, right? This is good reports. These are good verbal reports where it makes it a little bit easier to have this conversation. One with the Problem Solving Court on the funding update from Hillsborough County. It's going to be two components. One, the Indigent Trust Fund dollars that the Board of County Commissioners has approved on April 2nd, retro April 1st, for the adult mental health court funding. A little over $1 million a year for the next 3 years. I believe there's a couple renewals in there as well. That particular one, I was committed to doing. I think many of the individuals are most likely indigent and can align with the Hillsborough County Healthcare Plan from a continuity of service need component. So I think we were committed to doing that one. We had been working on that for about 6 months with Gina Justice's staff, and we are happy to report that it's gone that far to success. We do appreciate the criminal justice system. Myself and other staff were allowed to go to the court, go to pre-staffing conversations, and really see the effort that's made at a staff level for these individuals. So that's very powerful and meaningful. So we greatly appreciated that, and we're happy the Board of County Commissioners funded that. The second part of Problem Solving Court funding, the opioid settlement dollars that we all know that's been issued by the county for $25 million for a request for applications. A subset of that, or a second set, was $1 million allocation by the Board of County Commissioners for the problem-solving courts as well, the other courts, VTC and detox, et cetera. Staff and our staff and Gina Justice's staff are currently in contract conversations, scope development, working it through. So that started we are in May, probably started at the end of April. So that conversation is ongoing. Eventually, once staff works out, we'll go to the Board of County Commissioners and try to approve those contracts as well. I don't have a time frame on that, but staff is actively working on that. So those two things we're very committed on doing. With that, I'll stop for any questions.
Mr. Parkinson?
Just some comments. As a reminder, this issue was brought up last May as an acute need and priority for this group. The funding for those projects was going away. State level funding was going away, and we need a solution. And I'm very proud and happy that Kevin, when he slipped into his new role as our director, on his very first day on the job, literally his first day, we walked over to court administration, met, identified the level of need. Clerk Chris' staff actually provided some raw data on the number of individuals coming through the court system that qualify as indigent, and it's significant. So validating the use case for those funds. And, we were worried about surviving. With the funding that Kevin's department is going to be providing with the Board of County Commissioners approval, we're going to be thriving in the next year in our specialty court program. So thank you, Kevin. Absolutely amazing. Thank you for everything you've done. And there's only going to be good things coming from this.
Kevin, you can come to any meeting you want to and report on good news like this.
Well, thank you.
Anybody else have any other questions about this? Next, we have Mr. Wagner for the 1800 Orient Road Jail Step-Down Project Status Update.
Update,
We're
okay.
ready for some more good news.
Sorry, this is good news. And again, I know there are new members of the council, so give me about 30 seconds to kind of talk about the program itself. This one's been going on for about 7 years. I probably had less gray hair than what I do now, especially since I started this job. But this has been a 7-year project from a step-down facility at Orient Road, where the purpose is individuals who are leaving detention, go step down into the community, almost like a reentry program, get the services they need from an individual, group counseling, social determinants of health, wraparound services, access to health care, who are health care plan members who are indigent. It is an 85-bed facility. 10 of those are going to be women. The other are men, respectfully. So that facility has gone from concept to, I remember the genesis of that conversation, to identifying the building, multiple meetings, and now we're in the construction phase. And construction phase is going very well. We received funding through the Board of County Commissioners about a year ago. The project, the interior construction is scheduled to finish in June, so next month, tentatively per the project manager, but June. The exterior will be the end of the calendar year. So when you have a generator, permitting, things of that nature on the exterior side. So the service provider, we're working with Phoenix House, would probably open that the end of the calendar year, January, and maybe February at the latest from a conversation. So we're excited about that. We at the department will have to bring a contract to the Board of County Commissioners with the service provider, but we're happy to do that. We have a little bit more time. I think the relationship with Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, through Hillsborough County, the department, and with all the service providers is going to be key. Why I did mention Phoenix House may be the primary, all the service providers are going to have a role or a function. So it's not just an isolated silo. There's going to be a community benefit there. So when we look at that continuum with all the partners, it's really, Hillsborough County, again, is doing something innovative through the community and the partnerships that we've always done in this community for the last 35 years of such. So that's the update.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Wagner about that? Mr. Parkinson?
Just a couple comments. And as a reminder, Mr. Wagner has already put staff at the jail that are helping individuals in the jail and coming out of the jail be linked to Hillsborough County Health Care. So there is that nexus to make them appropriate and eligible for the program. This is an effort to address some of the high recidivism cases that we have here in Hillsborough County, often used to co-occurring substance abuse disorders. It's also an effort to dovetail on the success that the Sheriff's Office has with their inpatient drug program. They do a wonderful job at treating individuals in the jail, but what happens when they leave, they don't often have those links to ongoing services, and this solves that problem. So again, this is going to do a wonderful job at helping us with our highly recidivistic population.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes, sir.
Of course, you're welcome to take a tour now. It's a construction site. We're more than happy to invite the council, and then once we open, we'll certainly invite everyone here for a grand opening for the council. But if you want to do a tour, please reach out to my office. We'll be happy to. And separately, on Rob's point, myself and staff, we're going to take a tour of the current detention center with the jail with Captain Fortner. Because it's good for us to kind of see the other part of the component.
Thank you. We look forward as a council to coming to the grand opening. This is really exciting.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else have any other questions? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
And I'm looking at Mr. Barentine. I hope to continue with some good news. We have Mr. Barentine and Mr. Parkinson for the DOC Mobile Probation and Reentry Unit Project Overview.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Patrick Barentine. I'm the Circuit Administrator and Chief Probation Officer for the Florida Department of Corrections here in Hillsborough County. We supervise all adult felony probation cases. And I came to the council about a year ago speaking about some innovative practices that we had in other areas of the state where we have a mobile probation unit or mobile reentry unit that goes out into the community and is available to see some of our offenders in areas where they have difficulty getting public transportation or having transportation in general. A lot of the outlying areas in the county, the rural areas, have a difficulty getting into the probation office. And a lot of times they're relying on Uber, Lyft, family and friends, or their employer to get to the probation office. This would allow us to get out into the community to those areas and set up for the day and conduct probation office visits on an off-site location so that they're not quite as impacted with having to get all the way into town to get to the probation office. So again, this has been implemented in Palm Beach County. It's been implemented in Circuit 12, Manatee, Sarasota, and DeSoto counties, as well as the Daytona Beach area. It's had very positive success. We've seen some reduction in recidivism, as well as technical violations. There's almost a third has gone down by having that availability out in the community. It also gets us a little more visible in the community with some of our community partners and stakeholders, lets them see, hey, what's probation up to? You know, and we're set up out in the local area where the rubber meets the road. So again, we are looking for assistance with funding options to try to implement one of these here in Circuit 13, Hillsborough County. And I presented it to the Reentry Community Council recently, and that's kind of where we're at now.
Thank you. Mr. Parkinson?
And I'll go ahead and take over from there. Yes, the PSCC Reentry Committee met in March and voted to unanimously recommend this for funding under the state JAG program. In the intervening months, my staff has contacted Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and they confirmed, because this is a non-law enforcement vehicle, meaning not patrol vehicle, it would need special permission from Department of Justice. But this is not an insurmountable obstacle. We've broached that obstacle 2 times in the past. We were able to buy a breath alcohol testing vehicle for the sheriff's office, as well as an anti-gang graffiti abatement vehicle through this process. So my staff is willing to do it. They have actually started working with Mr. Barentine's white paper on the project, and we'll be working with his staff to change the white paper into a format that's acceptable for Florida Department of Law Enforcement to accept as a JAG project. Now, many of you have seen some of the challenges that are happening in Washington right now with reduction in federal grant funding, and that is a concern, but I can say up to this point, Justice Assistance Grant Program has not been cut, so I have high hopes. But we're going to move forward as if it is not going to be cut and request that this project be supported. Now, I would like the full PSCC to vote on recommending that the county submit this as its annual state JAG project for next year.
Yes, sir, Mr. Christ.
I've got several questions related to this. I'm looking through the materials that you provided, and this looks like a lot more than a bus. It looks like it has workstations in it, computer stations in it, and other items in it. Is that true?
Yes, that is true. It would be set up to actually conduct the probation office visits on the vehicle.
Okay.
There's 3 workstations that get set up. Officers can access the offender's electronic file and our case note database by logging into the computer system and be able to review the person's file while they're there on the vehicle. We can conduct mobile drug testing by oral swab drug tests as needed, and then if there's a further issue with that, then they would be directed to report immediately to the actual brick and mortar probation office.
Okay, it sounds innovative. From a cost perspective, has there been a cost impact analysis done here in Hillsborough County for this to determine whether it would be cost effective to move in this direction or possibly into a more stationary system?
I'm not aware of a study being done here in Hillsborough County, but I do believe we had approximately, over the last year, 15,000 violation of probation hearings conducted here in Hillsborough County. So if we could reduce those by 27%, which is the early findings that they found in some of these other areas that have that, that would be a significant savings to the county. It would be a significant savings to people being jailed in the Hillsborough County Jail, and less stress on the state attorney's office and the public defender's office as well.
Madam Chair, to follow.
Yes, sir.
To that end, has there been any studies to indicate that the problem is access? Do we know what the problem is and why those numbers are as high as they are? What's causing it?
Not directly, no, sir.
So we're not really positively sure that taking the probation parole officer and the testing and everything to the site is necessarily the only way to be able to reduce it.
I'm sure there's multifacets that could be looked at to continue to reduce recidivism and technical violations, sir.
I know in the clerk's office, we just went through a massive assessment of costs, and we're able to reduce our costs by 12%. And, you know, we looked at efficiencies, and it was amazing how when you look at something more than one way, you can find efficiencies. I'm wondering if it would be less expensive just to hand them a transportation card that we fill each month that enables them to get to a stationary location where everything's already in place. You know, my concern here is that there's been no impact assessment.
Mr. Parkinson?
So a couple comments. The funders for Palm Beach and Sarasota did do some SMART objectives for the project. And again, in both of those jurisdictions, they were able to have a 27% reduction in recidivism. And really the big target population there you're going to have a major impact on is those technical violations. We have done analysis here. DOC has done analysis of the VOP cases. We have about 5,600 per year here. To apply that 27% model to that 5,600 leaves a little over 1,500 cases that we can reduce. Not only the case processing, the role of the state attorney, the role of public defender, the role of our judge in Division K, but also the fact that we're going to also reduce those detention stays to the tune of about $152 a day, give or take, per detention day per person. So there are metrics on that, and I think they were presented in May in a little bit more detail. I think you didn't bring those materials today just because we're a little bit further along in the process.
Follow up?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Again, I'm not trying to discount the project. I mean, it definitely is creative. I'm just concerned that we may not have looked at all options and looked at what could be a less expensive way of handling the situation and being able to lower those numbers. I know, having had fleets of vehicles in a nonprofit that I once ran, it got to be very expensive when you start looking at the care and maintenance and replacement costs. And you know, this could be an expensive endeavor to achieve a lofty goal that we want to achieve, but there may be a less expensive way to do the same. And it seems to me is that there hasn't been any assessments or looking at any other potential options that could be utilized more efficiently.
All good comments, and I just want to add that Assistant Secretary for Corrections in Tallahassee contacted us and spoke to us. Was it in May, Patrick?
May, I'm sorry, Mr. Parkinson, or May of 2024?
Yes, May of 2024, and committed to, if the vehicle is purchased with this grant funding, that Department of Corrections would assume all responsibilities for maintenance, insurance, and related costs.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Parkinson or Mr. Ballantyne, but, Mr. Ballantyne, this was presented to the full committee at the May 17th, 2024 meeting and was approved, correct?
It was approved, and the chair asked that we convene the subcommittee to review it thoroughly and make subsequent recommendations, which occurred in March of this year. And the recommendation was that we utilize JAG funding for the project.
Mr. Ballantyne, do you have anything else further, sir?
Not at this time, no, ma'am.
Okay. Colonel?
An additional comment from law enforcement, there's only so many things you can try to do, and I commend the Department of Corrections in trying to get out there, because Mr. Parkinson says the it's food cost and things like that, the round number is $150 a day is only the tip. It doesn't include, what is now a $33 million contract for psychotropic meds, step-down meds, detox meds, and things like that to house these technical violators that many of them have dependency issues, mental health issues. So anything that can be done to try to reduce those technical violations, reduce the strain not only on the courts but on the detention system would be welcomed. Thank you, sir.
Madam Chair, another
Yes, sir.
confounding variable is that state JAG funds have previously been allocated to the Sheriff's Office on the authority of this board. Only recently did the Sheriff's Office ask for those funds to be used for some high-need areas on an interim basis. So, for instance, Sheriff Cronister asked that his allocation be used to support specialty court this year as a stopgap measure until we could find the solution that we found. And then, again, when this issue popped up, they asked that the funding be considered to support the mobile reentry unit. Now, once this is done, those funds, based on previous PSCC action, will revert back to the Sheriff's Office first choice of use.
And I have a question for Mr. Barentine and/or Mr. Parkinson. The 27% reduction in violations of probation, do you know approximately how many of those or what percentage were for failures to report? I'm not asking the question properly, but failure to report, of course, is a violation of probation. Did the other two jurisdictions other two circuits who have used this bus or something similar find a reduction in failures to report because the bus is literally going to the offender, whereas the offender does not have to go to a fixed location?
So I commit a lot of things to memory. In this case, it was just the total amount. I don't recall the actual breakdown between technical and other issues.
But overall, it was a 27% reduction in violations of probation at a technical, not new law violation level, but a technical level.
I believe that was a total, yes.
Okay. Does anybody have any other questions? Mr. Proctor, did you just scratch your head, or I'm like an auctioneer. I can see you putting your hand up. Okay. At this time, do you still believe, Mr. Parkinson, that it is appropriate for us to vote?
I think that Clerk Chris brings up some good issues. I think a lot of those issues were addressed with the previous PSCC, and that's always frustrating when you have a turnover in staff. One of the challenges that we have is that Florida Department of Law Enforcement is working on a very tight time schedule, and when Department of Justice releases the funds, and although I would love for them to tell me exactly when they're going to do it, they don't tell us, they just do it, and there's a very quick time frame. That's why we make all these preparations in advance. So that's why we have a shelf-ready project ready to go, and why we're working on the final details. If the decision was made not to move forward on this, there's not another, because the Sheriff's Office wanted to support this, so they don't have a shelf-ready project to move forward.
Okay, and what is the timeline that we would be working on if this were to pass today? Having passed, of course, a year ago tomorrow, what's the timeline that we're looking at to get this bus literally rubber meeting the road?
So when FDLE opens the program, we will submit, and it would be, the funding would be eligible starting October 1, the new federal fiscal year. So we would cut a contract with Department of Corrections for the purchase of the vehicle. We would write in all the metrics that we talked about today, that they would have to report back to the county, and then not just the purchase of the vehicle, but the follow-along metrics, how many probationers they're serving, recidivism, all those data points that we had talked about back in May.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. President Lewis.
I'm not sure, I'm looking over this packet as well, but my question is and it says here, highly populated areas, so what areas will this bus be covering?
We can drive that bus anywhere in Hillsborough County and set it up where we have people who claim that they have an issue with being able to get into the actual probation office. So it wouldn't necessarily just be rural areas. It could be areas in the city where people have transportation problems. I know we talked previously about setting it up at the Abe Brown Ministries so that the Inspire folks that are in the program could report all on site rather than having to come into the probation offices, and try to be as efficient as possible with their program and others like it.
No, and that's a good point, Ms. Lewis. Abe Brown Ministries did reach out to me after the May meeting and said they would be actually willing to partner. They would love for them to have them come to their offices to serve their clientele, but they would also be willing to partner with them and set up a card table wherever they're going to be so they can help get folks linked to reentry services. And we've had similar discussions with Ready for Work, and I actually have a meeting with them next week or the week after to talk about how they could possibly dovetail this project.
May I?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so thank you for talking about Abe Brown Ministries, but so if another organization or another company or business or however would like to request the bus to come out, are y'all able to do that too? Because Abe Brown Ministry is not the catch-all and the end-all in the city of Tampa.
Yes, absolutely. Ms. Lewis, I'd be willing to look into those requests and try to set something up to accommodate those other organizations as well.
Anyone else have anything further? Is there a vote to approve moving forward with the Department of Corrections Mobile Probation and Reentry Unit project?
This is Deanna. I'll move.
Thank you. Is there a second? Mr. Bates? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing nothing, the motion passes. Thank you very much. We now move on to other business, the Facilities Committee meeting to review the court master plan process with Vice Chair and Chief Judge Sabella.
Yes, I'd like to take just a moment to talk about the side of our courthouse that houses our criminal courts. And we call that the criminal annex. Part of that facility, the South Tower, which is on Kennedy, is now 62 years old. I told Judge Rich, who is the administrative judge of my county criminal courts, I was going to put him on the spot today to talk about all the issues and problems that we have over on that side of the courthouse. But in the interest of time, I'm going to skip that and rely on a quote from a facilities improvement study that was done 10 years ago in 2015 that made a finding that that building had surpassed its maximum capacity and can no longer function to meet today's functional requirement or future growth needs. I can tell you that we have grown significantly in those 10 years since that finding by the improvement study. We've continued to put Band-Aids on it, and problems arise almost on a daily basis. In 2020, the county commissioned Raynon and Partners to do a master plan that included a new criminal court complex that would have housed the state attorney's office, the public defender's office, so that all of the partners could be together in one building with the criminal courts. Unfortunately, COVID came along that same year and kind of sidetracked all of that. So we've been in kind of a situation since then where nothing has happened. But fortunately, in November of this past year, 24, the community investment tax passed, and there was money earmarked in that, $155 million for a new criminal courthouse, which is really what we ultimately need. I think that now it's time to update that master plan that was done in 2020, because some of the needs have changed with COVID and how we operate in the criminal courts. Sometimes we don't need to all be in the same place like before, but there's things that we need to take a look at and see how we can update that master plan. So what I'm recommending and actually moving is that we refer this issue to our facilities committee so that they can discuss a update to the master plan. Are there questions?
Just a couple comments. I know in general that the County Facilities Department is in support of moving forward on meeting to discuss these unmet needs with our court facilities. John Muller, our Director of Facilities, would like to have himself, his staff, and our Deputy County Administrator added to this group. I would also like to add, as Chief Judge Sabella indicated, a lot has changed since that last facilities project, and specifically COVID made us rely on technology much more than we had in the past. So I think it might be apropos to not only call a facilities meeting, but to do a combined meeting of facilities and Clerk Chris' long-term technology planning committee to discuss this issue and do the planning for the court
And that's
facility.
Clerk Chris as the chair?
He is the chair of the Long Range Technology Planning Committee, and Sheriff Cronister is the chair of the Facilities Committee.
Anybody have any questions or comment about that? Yes, sir, Mr. Chris.
I agree wholeheartedly with you, Chief Judge, and the clerk's office stands ready to support and to assist behind the scenes at whatever capacity we can in helping to move this forward to fruition.
And I greatly appreciate that, as well as all of the partners in the courthouse. And we have a lot of support. I've talked to all of the county commissioners. We have a lot of support moving forward with this project. So I'm very excited about it, and think that we're going to be able to see it come about in our lifetime. I'll say that 62-year-old building is actually older than I am, so I can tell you how all the things are falling apart on that. But we really do need a new criminal court complex, and we'd love to bring everybody together in one building.
Thank you.
I heard you mention moving. Are you making a motion for anything, sir?
Well, do we have to make a motion? Do I need to make a motion for those two committees to come together to discuss the plan?
That would be my recommendation, and also that it include the County Facilities Director, John Muller, and our Deputy County Administrator, Greg Horwedel, in those discussions. And my understanding is they also want to have their contracted architect come and do a presentation, so that as they're hearing your feedback on the strengths, weaknesses, and unmet needs, they can incorporate that into the draft of the master plan.
I think that's a great idea, so I'll make that motion.
Seconded by Mr. Christ. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Thank you very much. Now we are moving on to public comment.
There's no one signed up for public comment.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. Before we adjourn, yes, sir, Mr. Parkinson.
Just one quick comment. I wanted to recognize a couple folks in our audience. Will Warmke with the State Attorney's Office, as well as Tennille Mislicki. They are the co-chairs of Hillsborough County's Domestic Violence Task Force. When this council did some creative problem solving about 5 years ago to advance our domestic violence system, along with that came a $1 million grant to provide technology to the clerk system, but also to hire and coordinate a comprehensive community response model, or CCR model. We hired Tennille Mislicki as the manager of that process, and even though that grant is over, that process has continued to move forward. It meets on a monthly basis. We collaboratively problem solve, and we are getting to the point where we created so much efficiency that we have some outlying issues that will need to be addressed, and they will be reaching out to some of these PSCC members to help address some of these outlying issues that we haven't been able to make any headway on. Will, Tennille, do you have anything to add?
We just appreciate the council's support for all our efforts. I think we'll both position to be a statewide leader and how we combat domestic violence, so we definitely appreciate it.
And they've done an outstanding job, and we have a technology solution here. We have advanced training. Tennille and her staff are at ERs, meeting with medical providers. Kind of the hot button issue for the last few years has been the risk of strangulation and domestic violence. On it immediately as we saw the increase and have been addressing it. They've just been doing a wonderful job. So.
Thank you, Mr. Parkinson. I am proud to say that everywhere I go, whether it's talking to our law enforcement partners or the spring, Mr. Warmke and his great work is always very recognized. And I just thought that he and Marcus Johnson from my office were here just to hang out with me. So thank you very much for being here. Does anyone else have anything else before we move to adjourn? I just want to mention at the bottom of your agenda, our executive committee meeting, our next meeting is September 19th. That will be here, of course, at 8:30. And our next full council meeting is November 14th. I will not be here for that, but Chief Assistant Renee Marati will be standing in for me. Anything else from anyone before we adjourn? Thank you all for coming. Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion. Mr. Bates, second. Second, Ms. Obregon. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.